They're eating stuff out of oil.
Yeah, they're all.
They're scared of birds.
They are birds. What are you, chicken?
There is an egg.
Oh,
There's
no.
like a century egg.
Yeah.
They're eating chicken bones.
It's gross. Kind of bright today, Simo.
It's very bright, and you have sunglasses, and I don't.
Yeah, well, that's what you get when you get a better helmet. There's these road chickens over here.
They're eating like motor oil and chicken bones.
Yeah, it's pretty gross. That's what ends up on your plate in China, so please be prepared. Okay, so today, as we head back to, civilization, we're going to be talking about teaching English in China.
Yeah, I mean, this is probably one of the most asked things, right? Because most people that come to China are going to be teaching English. So hopefully we can give you some insight after 11 years experience, 7 years experience from me. Because we've pretty much we've run the gamut on all the jobs in China for teaching English, for sure. So let's go.
Let's hit the road. All right, so let's talk about the different kinds of English teaching, because there's not just one type of English teaching, right?
Nope.
The first entry level that I think a lot of people end up doing when they come here is working in a kindergarten.
Yeah.
I'm going to talk about that because that was my first job.
Okay.
Many people who watch my channel know the story. I was homeless, I'd run out of money, and an agent let me sleep on his couch, and he got me a job full-time at a kindergarten. And I did it for about a year and a half, and it got me on my feet, man. I saved enough money to get a nice apartment and sort my life out. It was a really good stepping stone to get my life going here in China.
Yeah.
But I'm gonna tell you, it was torture. If you work at a kindergarten, the pay is actually pretty good if you're doing it full time.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, back then I was naive, and the agent took a lot of advantage, and he was taking something like 40% of my salary.
Wow.
So I wasn't getting a lot. But anyway, let's just get into what teaching kindergarten entails. Watch out for this car on the right. You need to work a lot, okay? And it's usually a 6-day week. Okay, it depends. 5.5-day week, because they normally want you to go in on Saturdays to do some kind of extramural activities with the kids. But how it works is you usually get an English speaking teaching assistant, all right, who usually get this teaching assistant who helps you in class, and you have your bits of class that you have to do. You have to prepare. There are lesson plans and things, and you'll spend an hour with the kids teaching them a lesson, and then the sort of teaching assistant will then teach them something in Chinese, and then you have another class a little later. Then you have to go take them outside and play, and there's all sorts of stuff you have to do.
Right.
But what I want to get at here is that even when you're not teaching, you're still being utilized by the kindergarten in one way or the other.
Yeah.
They'll have you playing with kids, or they'll have you just doing something like shaking hands of kids outside the front, before work to show off to the parents, or they're utilizing you to the fullest. Or they'll have you doing some kind of promotion for the kindergarten, handing out flyers, or there'll be something, which is kind of annoying. So you don't actually just work your work hours, you work a lot more.
Right.
So because while you're at the kindergarten there waiting for your next class, you can't just sit there and play with your phone or whatever.
No.
Okay, so it's pretty hard work, but they do pay well. When I was doing it back in the day 10 years ago, you could get sort of 12,000 RMB a month,
Right.
I'm
much higher now.
Yeah, it's much higher now. It's probably in the range of about 20,000 RMB a month.
It's also much more competitive now.
Oh yeah, that's very true, and that's something we're going to talk about as well, is the fact that back in the day you didn't need any experience or qualifications or anything. You could just get an English teaching job, and that's changed a lot.
Right.
Okay, how about you talk about your entry-level job that you had?
It's probably the most common one that you guys will run into, and that's called a training center job. In Taiwan they call it a Bushniwan job. But my first job in mainland China was at a training center, and again I have to thank them for getting me on my feet. It was kind of like the only way I knew how to get into China, basically. And I didn't really know, I don't have an education background, I studied computer science. I didn't know what teaching English entailed. I thought you know, maybe you just go into a classroom with a whiteboard and then you're like write some words on the board and you tell them not to speak Chinese. Like I had no idea.
Right.
And I was in for a shock that for $550 a month salary, I had to teach like, you know, over 20 hours with full lesson plans that I had to hand in.
Yeah.
And, you know, people checking on your classes. I had open demo lessons where, you know, the parents would sit there and scrutinize you and get pissed off.
Film you with camcorders?
Yeah, film you. I had a guy smoking cigarettes in the back.
Yeah.
I mean, this is back in the day, obviously, but, you know, and I had to do things like go take them on special camps.
Yeah.
And have to plan entire days from like 6 a.m. to 8 p.m., you know.
Sure.
When do they eat? What do we do? What activities are we going to do? You know, like, what do you do if the kid gets hurt? All this kind of stuff. It was very, very intense.
Sure.
And it was for pennies, man. It was for pennies. But that's the kind of job that you're going to usually find, right? It's those kind of training centers that, you know, pay the lowest but are the most commonly found jobs. But by the same token, there's also professional companies like EF and Wall Street English that are also training schools, but usually focus on older students.
Sure.
And those tend to be a lot easier to deal with because you're not babysitting, basically.
Yes, I mean, that's something I didn't mention with the kindergarten job, is that it takes a lot of energy.
Yeah.
Because you have to control these young kids, and they're between sort of 3 and 5 years old.
Right.
And they're running rampant, and they're spoilt, and they're crying, and they're snot-nosed, and, you know, but you have to keep their attention, because another thing I didn't mention about the kindergarten is they have full-time video surveillance in the classrooms.
Yeah.
And the parents can sit at home and watch 24/7. It's got audio and video.
Right, right.
And I mean, I remember I had a case where, you know, you treat them equally and you call them up one by one type thing. And this one mother complained to the principal, and I got called into the office, and they're like, look, you only called this child up 3 times this week, but you called all the other children up 4 times. You
That's
know,
gotta
and I was
be
like,
stressful, dude.
I was like, what the hell? Like, you know, give me a break.
Right.
So, you know, you're constantly under surveillance. There's a lot of pressure from the school and the parents that you do the like a good job.
Yeah, because
And-
it's not a public school. They're for profit, right?
yeah, it's basically they're selling a commodity, and that is like, you're a white guy, you're a foreigner, so their children are going to learn real English, right?
Right, right.
But the standards are high, so don't think you can just come in here and, like, with a hangover, like, roll around in the class and make noises and it'll be okay. Because,
It used to be like that.
Yeah, a long time ago, but now, you know, they scrutinize you, and if you're not good enough, they'll replace you.
Right,
So, you know, you got to bear that in mind.
for sure.
Okay, so you mentioned the training center thing, right?
Yeah.
So the next step up for me after kindergarten, and I mucked around with some other training centers and things, I ended up at a very high-class training center, okay? Which is for adults only, which is great. That's what I like.
Right.
And it was a professional kind of office environment where I could wear a suit, which is, you know, that suits me just fine. Yeah. And it was nice, and the clientele were all sort of rich, well-to-do, upper class people. And I enjoyed the work environment. Of course, the work itself was absolutely boring and terrible, because we were stuck with this one sort of textbook that we had to teach, and it was a very weird kind of method from England called the Cullen method.
Okay.
And you basically have to just repeat words and get them to repeat, and it's like a parrot learning thing, and it was very annoying. But
Sounds awful.
Other than that, the salary was good, the work environment was good, everything was great. It just turns out that the owner of the school was just like a horrible rapist.
What?
It's another story, but basically he did go to jail. But
He's a horrible rapist as opposed to a good one.
Yeah, but he was basically having his way with all the staff, and I was
okay.
that was the instrumental kind of thing that made me lose and quit that job, because I stood up to him and he didn't like it. So
Right.
yeah. So except for the rapist thing, it was actually a really good gig, and I enjoyed it. I mean, I got to meet, you know, the people I was training, they were my age,
Yeah.
you know, so I got to meet some interesting people, and, you know, I really actually enjoyed that one.
Yeah.
But then, what was your next step up? Because I'll talk about my final step in the whole sort of English teaching evolution.
Keep in mind, like, I think Winston and I, we don't need to say this, but during this whole, you know, process, we were doing other things, you know,
Yeah.
on the side, like you were making videos and stuff like
Yeah,
that.
fixing bikes, making videos.
And so obviously, I mean, I don't think education was ever our goal in life.
No,
and there's
no.
a lot of people that take it seriously as a career, and I have to just be honest with you, that was not what we were doing.
Yeah.
But I think we did a good job, right?
Yeah.
So after that little training center, I actually moved to Taiwan and did another training center job which paid like 5 times more. And it was awesome. I ended up paying off all my student loans. However, it was 6 days a week, 36 teaching hours a week.
Yeah.
I literally, for that year, I barely did anything other than ride my motorcycle.
Yeah.
I had no time.
Yeah.
So again, like China afforded me a lot more time compared to Taiwan, at a lot lower salary. But anyway, got to pay off all my student loans, which is awesome.
Yeah.
And then I moved back to China, but I went to Inner Mongolia and I got a university job where I taught journalism, actually. Now, I don't know anything about journalism, and this is kind of, this is kind of indicative of what you might have to do in China at some of these jobs. Now, university jobs are highly coveted and sought after. Number one, you need to have a degree. Nowadays, a degree in the field that you're teaching is getting harder and harder. Back then, not so much, but super low hours. I think I taught like 8 hours a week.
Yeah.
And I get a visa, and the money was decent. I think I made like 13,000 a month.
Right.
And yeah, it was really cool. I mean, I had bushy-tailed, bright-eyed students that were super pumped to have a foreign teacher.
Yeah.
Really enjoyable, lovely students. Was definitely the dream job, and I implore you to, if you come to China and you're seeking out an education job, like, go for the uni jobs. You'll have so much free time and so much freedom in the classroom. It's fantastic stuff.
Yeah.
So that was that, and that's pretty much when I started everything outside of education. All the hobbies and things like riding bikes and all that kind of stuff was around that time because I had so much free time. It was a wonderful experience.
Right. That's cool.
What did you move on to?
Well, I get a lot of there's a lot of weird people out there on the internet who are like, because I mentioned I train doctors, right? Well, I don't anymore. I'm doing YouTube full time, but I was training doctors. And they're all like, this guy's just a fraud English teacher, says he trains doctors and all this kind of nonsense.
Yeah.
The thing is that I did train doctors. Okay, and let me break it down for you. So basically, I've been doing this this training stuff at this high class training center. And I'd met somebody who knew somebody who was a doctor, and they were opening this new business, which was kind of a government venture, and they needed someone they could trust to help them out. So they got me in touch. And basically what it is because the Shenzhen government has an incentive to send X amount of doctors overseas every 6 months to go and intern in Australia and Germany, right? They go over there and they do like a 3-month internship in order to learn how, foreign hospitals work, and they bring back the skills and teach their colleagues here. Hey, look, that dude's driving the wrong way.
Wrong way.
Wrong way on the wrong side of the road. Look at him. Everybody, there's how people in China drive. See that guy over there? Look at him.
Sometimes.
Look at him. Hey, you're going the wrong way. You with your whole family that you're putting here, you're going the wrong way. Idiot. Anyway, so they needed people. Yeah. They needed people to get these doctors ready because now they're going to go overseas to a completely different environment.
Right.
So I had to study up on something called the Merck Manual. Anyone who's familiar with medical terminology knows it's basically like a dictionary for medical terminology and whatnot. So I had to study up on all the different kind of diseases and afflictions and things like that. I had to study up on how prescriptions are written in the specific hospitals that they were going to. So I had to get like all the information from those hospitals.
Right.
And the main part of the course was to prepare them culturally for what they're going to be walking into, because Chinese people and Western people have very different cultures, right? And if you're going to go work in a hospital there, you need to know about the hospital rules and etiquette and that kind of thing. And also just in general, if you're going to be invited to somebody's home, for instance, like what you don't do, what you do. Right? Because they're wholly ignorant, especially the majority of doctors are part of that sort of lost generation, they're in their 50s and 60s, and they have absolutely no manners, like, well, at least what Western people consider to be manners. They like smoke in the hospitals, and they don't change their clothes for days, and that kind of thing.
Or do they have a medical background?
Yeah. Anyway, the fact of the matter is, that was my main job, was preparing them. So there was English teaching involved, but the majority of it was like cultural etiquette, hospital rules, medical terminology, that kind of thing. So it's a bit of everything, right?
It kind of shows, how broad the scope of English teaching is in China. You can end up with kind of very strange jobs like that.
Absolutely.
Now, the next thing that I did was actually start my own school. That's its own video in itself, but
Sure.
That being said, there is a lot of profit in that. Now, I'm not going to tell that story. What I'm going to do is transition into answering the question is, can you teach English anymore in China?
Right.
I'd say the market for training schools is, number one, much more competitive, and number two, much less lucrative. So I'd say there's less and less jobs nowadays.
Yeah,
I'd say they're
you're right.
higher paid, but there's less and less jobs nowadays. And the illegal English teaching jobs are less and less as well.
Yeah, that's right.
So I would say go for it. See if you have the qualifications to do it, but you're probably not going to find work without proper qualifications like a degree and a TEFL and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, it's going to be difficult. You won't find a job in a respectable place like Wall Street or
yeah, you'll end up in a very, very small city, maybe in central China.
Yeah, you will still very easily be able to find like a kindergarten job in a 5th tier city, like the places we're driving through now.
Yeah, like one of these places.
Oh yeah, that's not a big deal, because the local school will have some kind of connections with the local police. Not with him, but the local like police bureau, and they'll get you your dodgy visa or whatever. They'll sort something out.
Yeah.
Because nobody who's got like degrees and TEFLs and stuff are going to come out here.
Right.
Like they won't. Why would you?
No.
Unless you're really into like dirt.
Roughing it.
Anyway, I digress. Yeah. Let's talk about the reputation English teachers have, because I do want to go over this.
Yeah.
Here in China, if in amongst foreigners, you'll often get this kind of snobbish attitude of the foreigners who don't teach English. They'll be like, oh, look, it's just another English teacher, it's like...
That's like a derogatory term.
It's like, it's like saying a piece of turd, really.
Yeah.
All right? And that's quite deserved.
Sometimes.
Yeah, I'd say a good percentage, because the kind of people that historically ended up in these English teaching jobs were the people who were just not qualified to do anything. So people without an education,
right.
People who were losers back home, as they call them, LBH, right?
Or people just taking a gap year,
Yeah, or like backpackers or whatever, and they end up here just doing English teaching, which is like something that doesn't require any skills to start off with.
Speaking your native language.
Yes. However, I'm not going to put it down, because teaching English is a difficult job, and people don't actually understand. Like, to do it right is incredibly difficult, because there's lots of lesson planning involved. You have to learn how to control an audience, especially if they're younger. You have to be able to engage
It's a constant
with people.
performance.
Yeah, it's like a performance. It takes a hell of a lot of energy, and to do it right is difficult. But anyway, the slobs would come here, the kind of people that are just here to party, and they'd be drunk 24/7 and, just doing all the dodgy stuff and coming in hungover or calling in sick every day and rolling into class sweating from their hangover and stuff, and just not good. So that's where the bad reputation comes from. However, let's cite some examples of good English teachers that we know. How about you go ahead first?
There's a lot of people I know that do a really good job. Usually those people are kind of in the hierarchy that we just talked about, are in the middle schools, public schools. You're actually working at a real school in China.
Yeah.
International schools, so like maybe an American branch will open a Chinese branch.
Yeah.
University jobs. Those people tend to be the ones that are educated and behave themselves and are at least, have a semblance of caring about their job.
Sure.
Whereas the training center and the kindergarten positions do have very awesome people sometimes. They do have people that work really hard, but more often than not, I think people that are just here for a quick little vacation, or literally have nothing that they can do back home.
Yeah.
So that reputation, I would say, is more of a negative when you talk about foreigners to foreigners.
Yeah.
And when Chinese people, if you say to a Chinese person that you're an English teacher, I think most of them wouldn't bat an eyelid. They'd be like, oh, that's nice,
Yeah, that's very true. I mean, I do know some people who put a lot of effort and time into this. Like I've got that friend Cactor in Taiwan, and he really takes it very seriously, and he will spend his time at home writing out his lesson plans and figuring out how to do it better, and you know, he's fully into it, he's fully committed. He's even, his daughter's going to his training center now as well.
Right.
I don't know if he actually teaches it, that'd be a bit weird, you know, but the thing is, like, that's an example of someone who's doing a good job of it, you know.
Yeah.
But we have to now bring up the sore subject of the fact that this is never going to help your career or your resume.
Yeah, it's a sad way to end, but it's, if you teach English in China, I mean, I don't know of any employers back home that will value that experience. You're going to have to use it as like a working holiday. Like,
Yes,
it's not
yes.
going to buff your resume. You're not going to get job opportunities back home, and it's not going to count towards any education job back home either.
No, it won't. I mean, a lot of people have this excuse that they're doing it so they can learn the language because, you know, Chinese is the next big thing and China's the next big superpower. But those people that say that, they never learn the language.
I noticed
you
that.
know. And it doesn't matter if you pick up some little bit of conversational here and there. If you're going to learn the language, you have to do it properly and actually study it.
Yeah, because they're not gonna, back home, they're not gonna hire a Chinese speaker that's not as good as a native Chinese speaker that's already in America
They're also
or
not
Canada.
they're not going to like believe that you've got any kind of Chinese skill unless you've passed like the HSK or
HSKs,
something,
yeah.
and you've got some kind of paper to prove it. And that's pretty much the be-all and the end-all. You can still come here and teach English. You still can find, if you want to go to like some crappy town, you can find a job illegally if you wanted to teach without a degree or without any TEFL or anything. You could walk into one of those places. It's not going to be very fulfilling.
But honestly, I say go for it. I say go for it. I mean, we all use it as a stepping stone, so.
Yeah. I mean, for those of you who want to do it seriously, you know, if you have a degree, and it doesn't matter what your degree is in, right? But if you have a degree, you have to be a native speaker nowadays. You have to be a native English speaker. So you got to have a degree, be a native English speaker, and then you can walk into one of these big places. And I suggest you do that. Try and contact Wall Street, EF. I think the other one's called METEN. You know, these big ones. Because they'll sort you out. They'll get you a plane ticket over here, you know, they'll give you accommodation. Those are the ones you want.
It's the most Western working environment.
Absolutely, and they also don't discriminate as much as the other ones. So, you know,
that's
if
true.
you
Like if you're black or whatever.
Yeah, if you're not a whitey, you know, you can still get a job. So even if you're like an Asian ABC, they'll still treat you like with respect, you know.
Gotcha.
So that's really it. Anything you'd like to say to our subscribers before we sign off?
Whether you are a native speaker or not, or whether you decide to come to China for a couple of years to try teaching English or not, I hope that your English is good enough to understand what I'm saying, so that when I tell you to like, comment, and subscribe, you do so.
Yeah, okay. And whether or not you're a LBH or a WBH, you know, winner back home.
Nice.
Yeah, doesn't matter because we love you all the same, and you know the drill. Until next time, stay awesome.